I sat at the long dining table, my hands resting in my lap, listening to the sound of plates and silverware clinking around me. Everyone was talking at once, laughing, sharing stories. I tried to smile, but my chest felt tight. Losing my job had already taken so much from me. Tonight, I was about to lose something else. Lauren sat across from me, dressed perfectly, her posture confident. She didn't look at me the way she used to. Halfway through dinner, her brother joked about work stress, and someone asked me when I'd be back on my feet. Before I could answer, Lauren laughed. It wasn't nervous or kind. It was sharp. She said I had all the time in the world now, since I didn't have a job. Then she added that I was lucky she was still paying most of the bills. The table went quiet for a second, then a few uncomfortable chuckles followed. My face burned. I stared at my plate, wishing I could disappear. Her father leaned back in his chair and nodded slightly, as if agreeing without saying it out loud. He mentioned how hard it is to respect a man who can't provide. His voice was calm, almost polite, which somehow made it worse. Lauren's mother didn't say anything. She just looked down and kept eating. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to explain that layoffs happen, that I was already working on something new. But the words wouldn't come. Every sentence I practiced in my head felt weak. I felt small, like I didn't belong at that table anymore. Lauren kept going, saying I used to be ambitious, like that version of me was gone forever. She smiled while she said it. That smile hurt more than the words. In that moment, I understood something clearly. This wasn't about one lost job or one bad month. This was how she really saw me when I stopped being useful. The respect was gone, and maybe it had been for a long time. I stayed quiet until dinner ended. I said thank you, forced a smile, and walked out with everyone else. Inside, though, something had changed. I felt broken, yes, but also awake. Before everything fell apart, our marriage looked good from the outside. We lived comfortably, took trips, and hosted friends without worry. Lauren used to look at me with pride when people asked what I did for work. She would squeeze my hand and tell others how driven I was. At home, she laughed easily and spoke about our future with confidence. I believed we were a team. When I lost my job, the change didn't happen all at once. At first, Lauren said the right things. She told me it would be fine and that something better would come along. But her tone shifted quickly. The warmth in her voice faded. She started keeping her distance, spending more time on her phone, answering me with short replies. Soon, small comments turned into sharp ones. She reminded me daily that the bills still had to be paid. She asked how long I planned to sit around. When I tried to talk about my plans, she brushed me off, saying actions mattered more than words. At night, she slept facing away from me, like there was an invisible wall between us. She began comparing me to other men she knew. She talked about husbands who were getting promotions, buying new cars, taking their wives out to nice dinners. She asked why I couldn't be like them. When I said I was trying, she told me trying wasn't enough and that a real man wouldn't be in this position. Sometimes, during arguments, she said things she couldn't take back. She said marrying me had been a mistake. She said love didn't pay the bills. Each word landed heavily, but I swallowed the hurt and stayed calm. I told myself this was just stress talking. I still cooked meals, cleaned the house, and looked for work every day. I kept believing that marriage meant staying when things got hard. I thought if I stayed patient and strong, she would see my effort and come back to me. What I didn't realize then was that she had already pulled away. While I was holding on to hope, she was letting go. I was fighting for us alone, not knowing the marriage had already started to end behind closed doors. Not long after the tension at home grew worse, Richard's business problems became the main topic in the house. Every visit, every phone call, circled back to the same worries. He talked about contracts falling through and partners backing away. The pride he once carried was replaced with frustration and fear. He spoke like a man watching years of hard work slowly slip from his hands. Lauren stood firmly by her father's side. She listened closely to every detail and repeated his concerns as if they were her own. When money came up, her eyes often shifted toward me. She didn't say my name, but the message was clear. I was no longer useful. I couldn't offer advice that mattered, and I couldn't fix anything. During dinners, they spoke openly about the company's future, as if I weren't there. They talked about selling, about finding the right buyer, about saving what was left. Lauren said it was sad that her husband couldn't even help her father in a crisis. She said it calmly, like a fact, not an insult. I kept my face neutral and said nothing. Inside, I felt the weight of being underestimated. They saw me as broken, finished, and irrelevant. They didn't ask what I thought or what I knew. They assumed I had nothing left to offer. What they didn't see was how quiet nights had become my turning point. While they slept, I worked. I reviewed old notes, reached out to contacts I trusted, and studied opportunities one had once ignored. I used what savings I had left carefully, knowing I couldn't afford mistakes. I didn't talk about it. I didn't defend myself. I learned that explaining only gave them more chances to doubt me. So I listened while they planned their future without me. I listened while they discussed handing the company to a stranger. Each conversation hardened something inside me. I wasn't rebuilding my life to prove them wrong. I was doing it because I refused to stay where I wasn't respected. Quietly, step by step, I started building something new, while they assumed I had nothing at all. The more invisible I became at home, the harder I worked outside of it. I stopped sharing my days with Lauren because every conversation ended in doubt or sarcasm. Instead, I kept my focus on what I could control. Through a trusted contact, I connected with a small financial firm that valued experience over appearances. We agreed to work quietly under a new company name, one that didn't lead back to me. The work was exhausting. I woke up early, stayed up late, and pushed myself past comfort. There were days I questioned whether it was worth it, but stopping was not an option. I had too much to lose if I failed. This wasn't about pride or proving anyone wrong. It was about keeping myself afloat when everything familiar was slipping away. Slowly, things began to stabilize. Projects came in. Trust was rebuilt. People started listening to me again, even if they didn't know who I really was. Each small win reminded me that I still had value, even if it wasn't recognized at home. Lauren noticed the changes, but not in a good way. She accused me of being secretive. She asked why I was always busy if I wasn't making money. When I stayed calm and avoided arguments, she took that as weakness. She said I was hiding things because I was ashamed. Her words grew harsher. She said I was contributing nothing and that she felt like she was married to a stranger. One night, during an argument, she said maybe we needed space. She said separation might be the only way to push me to fix myself. I listened without raising my voice. I didn't promise anything. I didn't beg her to stay. I simply nodded and walked away. In that moment, I realized how far apart we had grown. While she questioned my worth, strangers trusted my judgment. While she doubted my future, I was quietly rebuilding it. I learned to move forward without needing approval. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for sure: I would never again let someone else decide my value. One evening, I came home earlier than usual. The house was quiet, and I didn't announce myself. As I walked down the hallway, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. Lauren was there with her mother. I stopped without thinking, standing just out of sight. Lauren's voice was low but clear. She said she was tired of pretending everything was fine. She admitted she felt embarrassed being married to me. She said she never imagined her life turning out this way. Her mother listened quietly while Lauren spoke without holding back. She said she regretted marrying me. She talked about how different things used to be and how ashamed she felt explaining my situation to others. Then she said something that stayed with me. She said once her father's problems were handled, she might leave. She didn't say it with anger. She said it like a plan. Her mother asked if she was sure. Lauren answered without hesitation. She said love wasn't enough when stability was gone. She said she needed more from life than waiting on someone who might never recover. I stood there, frozen. I didn't feel angry or shocked. I felt empty. In that moment, everything became clear. She never believed in me. She believed in what I provided. When that disappeared, so did her loyalty. I walked away quietly and went to the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark for a long time. My mind replayed every moment I had defended her behavior, every excuse I had made for her words. That night, something inside me went silent. I stopped wanting to explain myself. I stopped hoping she would understand. I stopped trying to be enough for someone who had already decided I wasn't. I didn't confront her. I didn't argue. I simply accepted the truth. From that point on, I focused on one thing, leaving with my self-respect intact. Whatever came next, I knew I would face it calmly, and on my own terms. A few days later, the mood in the house shifted. Richard called everyone together and announced that a buyer had agreed to purchase his company. His voice carried relief, almost pride. He spoke about fresh starts and second chances. For the first time in weeks, there was laughter in the room. Lauren's reaction changed instantly. The tension in her shoulders relaxed. She smiled more, spoke softly, and even asked if I wanted coffee in the morning. It felt sudden and forced, like a switch had been flipped. She talked about how things were finally looking up and said this might be the end of a difficult chapter for all of us. I listened without reacting. I didn't question her change in tone. I didn't comment on the deal. I simply nodded and kept my thoughts to myself. Silence had become my safest place. Richard went on about the buyer, praising their professionalism and quick decision-making. He said the final meeting would take place soon and that everything would be official then. He invited Lauren to attend, saying it was important for family to be present when something so meaningful ended and began again. Lauren was excited. She talked about the meeting like it was a celebration. She spoke about stability returning and how proud she was of her father for handling everything so well. She even hinted that things between us could improve now that the pressure was easing. I stayed calm and distant. I didn't correct her assumptions. I didn't explain what I knew. There was no reason to. The truth didn't need to be announced early. As plans were made for the meeting, I focused on staying steady. I kept my routine simple and my words few. Inside, I felt prepared in a way I hadn't before. I wasn't waiting for approval or change anymore. Everyone around me saw the deal as a rescue. They saw it as the end of a problem. I saw it as a moment that would finally bring everything into the open. And when that day came, I was ready to face it without fear. The meeting took place in a large conference room with glass walls and long tables. Lawyers sat on one side, executives on the other. Papers were neatly stacked, and the air felt serious and heavy. Richard looked nervous but hopeful. Lauren sat beside him, confident and relaxed, as if everything had already worked out. I took a seat quietly near the end of the table. No one paid attention to me. They didn't expect me to matter in that room. The door opened, and people began to stand. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Instead of someone new walking in, I stood up. Chairs stopped moving. Conversations died out. The silence felt thick. Richard stared at me, confused at first. Then his expression changed. Lauren's face drained of color. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me at all. I introduced myself calmly. I stated my name and explained that I was the principal owner of the investment group that had acquired the company. My voice didn't shake. I didn't rush. I simply spoke the truth. No one interrupted. The lawyers exchanged looks. Richard's hands tightened on the table. Lauren's eyes moved from me to the documents in front of her, then back to me again, as if hoping this was some kind of mistake. I explained that the process had been handled professionally and legally. Everything was finalized. The deal was done. The company was now under my control. Lauren didn't speak. She couldn't. The realization hit her slowly. The man she had laughed at, the man she had doubted and dismissed, was standing in front of her with calm authority. I wasn't there to prove anything. I wasn't there to embarrass anyone. I sat back down, letting the weight of the moment settle. The room remained silent for a few seconds longer. In that silence, everything changed. Power shifted. Truth surfaced. And there was no taking it back. After the shock settled, the meeting continued. I spoke clearly and calmly, focusing only on the business. I explained the next steps and confirmed that the company would continue operating without disruption. I made it clear that jobs were safe and that stability was a priority. Richard listened closely, still shaken, but relieved. I addressed him directly and said the company had value and history, and that it deserved careful leadership. At the same time, I stated that decisions going forward would be based on performance and responsibility. There would be no special treatment. No favors. Everything would be earned. I didn't raise my voice or show emotion. I simply set boundaries. When the meeting ended, people began to file out quietly. I gathered my papers and prepared to leave. That was when Lauren approached me. Her confidence was gone. Her voice shook as she asked if we could talk in private. In the hallway, she broke down. She apologized through tears, saying she never meant to hurt me. She said she had been under stress and didn't know how to handle everything. She said she was proud of me now and that she always believed in me, even when it didn't seem like it. I listened without interrupting. I didn't argue or remind her of the past. I didn't correct her version of events. I just watched her speak, noticing how different she looked compared to the person who had once looked down on me. Something inside me felt empty, not angry. The words that once would have broken me now meant nothing. I realized I wasn't waiting for her apology anymore. I didn't need her approval or regret. When she finished, I thanked her for speaking honestly. My voice was steady. I told her I hoped she would be okay. That was all. I walked away without looking back. For the first time, I understood what real strength felt like. It wasn't cruelty or revenge. It was calm control, and the ability to move forward without carrying someone else's guilt. That night, the house felt quiet and heavy. Lauren sat on the couch, waiting. She looked tired, like the day had drained everything out of her. I stood across from her and told her we needed to talk. My voice was calm, and I kept my words simple. I told her I was filing for divorce. I didn't accuse her or raise my voice. I just spoke the truth. I said love cannot survive without respect. I said being humiliated changes how you see someone, and once that trust is broken, it doesn't come back the same. She stared at me at first, like she didn't understand. Then she panicked. She said she was sorry and that she would change. She said she finally saw my strength and everything I was capable of. She promised to support me and stand by me the way she should have before. I listened quietly. When she finished, I told her something she didn't want to hear. I said she only saw value when it benefited her. I said I couldn't unhear the words she spoke or forget the way she treated me when she thought I had nothing. She cried and asked me not to leave. She said we could start over. I shook my head. I told her I didn't hate her, but I couldn't stay. Staying would mean losing myself, and I had already given up too much. I packed a small bag that night. I didn't rush. I didn't slam doors. Before I left, I told her I hoped she would find what she was looking for. When I walked out, I felt lighter. There was sadness, but there was also peace. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't trying to prove my worth to anyone. I was choosing myself, and that felt like the cleanest ending I could give us both. Months passed since I walked out of that house, since I closed the chapter on a marriage that had stopped being about love and respect. At first, the days were quiet in a way that felt strange. I had routines to rebuild, accounts to manage, and work to focus on. Slowly, the quiet became my ally. I dedicated myself to projects I had put aside for too long. I nurtured relationships with people who respected me, who didn't measure me by my income or my status. I found peace in small victories, a project completed, a deal closed, a morning where I woke without dread. Success didn't feel like proving anyone wrong anymore. It felt like reclaiming my own life. Lauren's presence faded from my daily thoughts, but I knew she was still thinking of me. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she struggled with the truth of what she had lost. She realized, too late, that the man she had humiliated, doubted, and dismissed had quietly grown into someone stronger than she had ever expected. But that no longer mattered to me. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't flaunt my achievements. I didn't need to. The satisfaction came from within. I had rebuilt my dignity, my self-respect, and my life. I was no longer defined by anyone else's opinion or judgment. Sometimes, I reflected on the marriage and what it taught me. I understood now that true strength isn't about lashing out or showing others you're right. True strength is about knowing your worth, choosing yourself when others fail to see it, and moving forward without bitterness. I learned that the loudest revenge isn't in humiliation or confrontation. It's in quiet growth, in building a life that no one can shake. Betrayal loses its power when you stand tall and keep your peace intact. Looking back, I realized the most important victory wasn't the money or the company. It was the calm, the control, and the dignity I had reclaimed. I had proven to myself what I was capable of, and that was enough. Life was no longer about trying to be seen, it was about living fully, with integrity, and never settling for less than respect again.